Hello, everyone. Welcome back to These Are the Nerds You're Looking For. This week, this is Kevin Horde here. Sorry.
Lorenzo Fon over here.
Yeah, so
with a bonus episode.
Episode. Lorenzo was like, hey, let's record a bonus episode. So we're sitting down today, and I guess we're going to be talking about the Clone Wars, right? Not the Clone Wars?
No, not this time. No,
Not
something
this time?
something wonderful has happened.
The Last Jedi?
No. Nope, even more recent than that. We are actually
Infinity War.
trying later. We'll get to that later. There's a lot to talk about there too. But there is another Star Wars story to speak of that has been released.
Rogue One.
You gotta catch up, buddy. Let's go.
So what are we doing here today?
We are on the fourth. Oh shit! It is the fourth one, isn't it? Fourth Disney film
Fourth Disney film.
that has fourth Disney Star Wars film. I guess fourth Star Wars film released by Lucasfilm as owned by Disney, right?
Sure.
Is that how? Yeah. So, what are we talking about? Solo. Solo, a Star Wars story, has been released.
A Star Wars story. So we've got a solo episode covering Solo, a
Solo.
Star Wars story.
Yeah. So Kevin and I each saw it once, and the Memorial Weekend has just occurred. So we are recording this pretty much as soon as I've entered town again. So we have had a few days of space between seeing the film and sitting down to record and talk about our reactions to Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yes.
We're not gonna do a every moment breakdown like we tend to with the 22-minute Clone War episodes. That would be a little too much, I think.
I tend to agree.
Considering those already go 90 minutes, and we are now going to cover a 2-hour and 15-minute movie.
Yep.
Do we still want to give a quick overview of what the movie is about?
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. So do you just want to give a rough breakdown of the plot, kind of 2-minute
Yes.
synopsis?
Yeah, so just real quick, brief overview of where the film is beginning. This is a prequel to Episode 4, A New Hope. We have a young Han Solo living on Corellia, and his girlfriend, lover, lady friend, Kira, also with him. They are basically, what are they described as? Like scrum rats or something like that? something, yeah.
Yeah.
It's essentially Act 1 of Aladdin. They're just kind of stealing to survive.
Yeah, they
sort
kind of live in the
situation.
slums, and
Yeah.
something happens at the beginning, and then they're almost like in some sort of slavery or indentured servitude. I think is probably more appropriate. But
Yeah, it's like some sort of gang life they're involved in, right? Is
right. But
that how you
they're
describe that? Yeah.
Yeah, I got the impression that they were kind of like working to pay off like a debt that with some parameters that are
Yeah.
almost unattainable. But they try to run away. They try to escape. They get split up. So Han gets away. Kira
Yep.
doesn't. He's all distraught. He joins the Galactic.
It's the Imperial Navy,
Yeah.
I believe. Yep.
The Imperial Navy. Then it fast forwards like 3 years.
Yeah.
And from there, some other shit happens while he's like an infantry member, and essentially he gets thrown in jail where he meets Chewie. They break out. They meet
And then
some other characters, which
Yep.
is like Woody Harrelson's character, Tobias Beckett, who's kind of an all-around look out for yourself kind of guy.
Yeah.
And
He's definitely working outside of the law, and there's no question about that,
Yeah.
like right off the bat. They kind of Tobias definitely tries to play that he's part of the Imperial Navy, but Han figures out really quickly that he's definitely lying.
Yeah.
And he's got his own crew.
Yep.
And essentially the story is about how Han wants into this group, and he wants to be able to kind of earn some money and get a ship to be able to go back to Corellia and reunite with Kira.
Yeah, because once he gets split up with Kira, his main goal is to make enough money to get a ship, go back and rescue her, essentially.
Yep.
So goal 1 at the beginning of the movie was make enough money to earn his own freedom-ish, I guess, and get a ship,
Yeah.
and the two of them can kind of fly around the galaxy doing whatever they want. That's interrupted, so then he uses the Imperial Academy / Navy as a means to an end. That doesn't work out, so then he sees Beckett, so he tries to hook up with him, and that's the adventure that we go on in Solo.
Yeah. So just before we move any further, that's the basic plot outline of Solo, a Star Wars story. And basically from here on out, Kevin and I are going to be just kind of discussing anything and everything that we kind of our basic reactions to the film. So from here on out, I do want to stress that there will be spoilers.
100%.
So yeah, this is your full warning. So yeah, let's just get into it. Do you want to just give your basic reactions to this film?
No, I want to save my basic reaction for. I don't know if we'll do a thumbs up, thumbs down of the film.
Yeah,
in
I think
general,
that'll still
but,
be appropriate. Yeah. So
I don't want to just blatantly throw out my overall.
okay, let's start with this. How
Sure.
do you feel about the placement of this story as to the rest of the, let's just say, film series?
Like in the timeline, you mean?
Yeah, so timeline in terms of how do you feel about this story being told, being that it's a prequel, kind of covering things that have been discussed in every other film?
Okay, so that being said, this film takes place from 13 BBY, before Battle of Yavin, is like the initial time frame, and then that 3-year time jump, so we're at 10 BBY, which pretty much sticks us smack dab in the middle between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, because there's a 19-year span there. So I'm okay with that. I'm totally good. Like it's a good point to kind of dump us into, because we're essentially halfway between the prequels and the original trilogy.
Yeah.
So time frame I'm good with. It's a good idea. We'll see how it works.
Yeah.
That being said, this makes Han like 19 when we first meet him. At the beginning of Solo, he's 19 years old.
Yep.
We get this 3-year time jump. He's 22. So by the time that we meet him in A New Hope, he's 32. And I think that Alden Ehrenreich looks too close in age to be playing somebody that's supposed to be 10 years younger than Harrison Ford was in 1977. So Harrison Ford would have been 35.
Yeah.
Alden is like 28, something like that. He was born in 87.
Something like that. Yeah.
He was born in 87 or 89.
That would make him a little... 89. He was 28.
Yes.
Yeah.
So age-wise, they're about 6 years apart. Character-wise, they're supposed to be 10 to 13 years apart.
Yeah.
He definitely does not pull off a 19-year-old Han. 22,
I'll agree with that. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought just by looking at the two guys that played this one character, I thought it was maybe a 3 to 5 year jump.
Uh-huh.
Not 10 to
Not
13.
a whole decade.
That's pushing it.
I don't fully disagree, but also, I mean, it's one of those things that's hard to judge, because the difference between a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old, unless they have gone through some, like, shit, they're not going to age that drastically, right?
I disagree, but
I don't disagree that 19 is definitely pushing it. That we're talking like a Dawson's Creek 19.
yeah, that's very true. This is a world where we have people in their 30s playing high school students. So
yeah. So I'm
it kind of
what was more important to me was that from the trailers, I was having trouble kind of
gauging
definitely
the timeline.
Gauging the timeline, but also just with going back to Rogue One, there's this whole thing where it was hard to duplicate Tarkin, so they just CGI'd the hell out of that character, right?
Okay.
But then now that we have like a whole movie that's would be much more difficult to do that, and the main, we're centering a main character around somebody, so instead of CGIing a person, we got an actor.
Yeah, no, I think the recast is fine. Like, I'm not sitting here thinking that we should have used like some de-aging technology on an 87-year-old Harrison Ford. And yes, I know he's not actually 87, but he's
still
like 75, I think.
Yeah.
I think he was born in like 42. But if you're going to have the time jump in the movie, like, I don't know, do something there. Like, we've seen it before where within a movie there is a progression of time, and we've seen characters show a progression of age in some sort of fashion. Like, the only thing that changes from one scene to another, other than the text at the bottom saying 3 years later, is that Han Solo has different, like, changes costume. Like, he's in a different place in a different costume, but looks the same. It could have been 3 weeks later. It could have been...
No, yeah. Here I definitely disagree with you, because the age difference between 19 and 22, unless he got like a fully different haircut or something like that, there's not much to try and signify that change, right? Like, from having the same actor.
Okay.
3 years is rough. 3 years. I get trying to figure that this dude is 10 years younger than the Han we meet in the cantina on Tatooine. But going from 19 to 22, that's going to be a harder jump. I think they sold it well by kind of throwing him into the middle of like a trench warfare scene, which was like straight out of a World War I film.
Okay. And by the way, this planet of the mud planet, right, is Mimban, which we talked about on an episode covering the Clone Wars, although I don't know what episode it covered, and I'm wondering if that episode has aired to the public yet. So that's interesting.
Yeah, because we've gone so far ahead.
Right.
With the rest of our recording.
So either we have talked about Mimban,
and it hasn't aired yet.
Or we will talk about Mimban.
Yeah.
And it's real brief. But the way that we discuss it, because I just figured out that it was going to be in Solo, and at that point we just cut down all ties with Mimban and said we'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
So Mimban is this, I think it's described as like a bog planet. So it's basically a big mud shithole. And the Imperial Navy is there. There's some sort of ground war going on. I'm not sure who they're supposed to be fighting.
Yeah, that's definitely not made clear. From what I could tell, we get the brief mention that the Imperial's kind of just making enemies with everybody.
Yeah.
Right. There's that mention that I can't recall if it's from Han or someone else where, he makes the point that they're the invaders, right? They're not the liberators. They're the invaders.
Yes.
Right.
Han does say that. He says that to one of his commanding officers.
Yeah. So I did find that interesting that there, in all the films so far, the Empire is definitely like capital B big bad guy, right? And this is I would say the closest of having one of our good guy characters aligning themselves with the Empire.
Okay.
And then kind of bringing up criticisms of it from within, whereas all the other characters we've seen are definitely like, no, this is just what we do, and this is my duty to handle this. Hux is doing it just out of the love of his heart of the First Order, right?
Yeah, well, I think in canon, like, Hux's dad was like a general in the Empire who...
So he's carrying on that legacy?
He's carrying on that legacy, and I think in canon, Hux actually kills his dad. For some reason. I don't really know. Yeah. I don't know too much about the new canon.
Yeah.
Especially that time period, but you do bring up an interesting point that Han is the one, or one of the first ones that we see to say, to question it, because in the scene we're talking about, there's a commanding officer that's like, all right, everybody, fucking get your shit together, we're headed this way. And Han's like, why? Like, why are we going over there? Like,
yeah.
He's basically questioning, like, who are we fighting? Why are we fighting them? And they're like, oh, well, they're fighting against us. And he's like, yeah, they're fighting against us because we came to their planet and we're trying to, like, enforce upon them, like, what we want their planet to be like. So
yeah.
We're the, like you said, he says, we're the invaders here, the intruders or the aggressors or whatever it is. And old dude's, basically like, nope, this is the way it is. Like, you got something against the Empire, boy? Like, I don't know.
Well, basically they throw him in a mud pit with a quote unquote monster. So, right? Is that what's happening, right?
So I thought that, like, Han had this altercation, and then they push him forward anyway, and that's when he meets Beckett and Beckett's crew.
Yeah.
And so Beckett and his crew are dressed up in Imperial garb. But Han basically takes one look at them and knows, like, these aren't actual soldiers and commanding officers or whatever. And then
the armor they're wearing already has, like, blaster holes right through the chest. So there's no way Beckett would have survived that. Han is smart enough to put 2 and 2 together there.
Yeah, for sure. So is that something that you noticed when while you were watching the movie? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like there's a quick shot to Beckett's armor, and there's definitely a reaction shot to Han where he notices the holes, and Beckett just plays it off, And Han definitely is understanding that these people are here not for the cause but for their own causes, and that, I think, is what entices him to follow them.
Yeah, he sees them as his way out. So then he does go up to them and he's like, yo, I know that you're not actually with the fucking Empire, like, take me with you, I want to get out.
Yeah.
And I think he says something like, I'm not a deserter, I'm just a person with ideals, or something like that. I don't remember exactly what he says.
Yeah, something like that.
And so Beckett, like, looks at him, he's like, I don't think so, and they have a little,
because also, like,
they have a little discussion.
Yeah, if you have your own crew, the idea, the hesitation from Beckett and the rest of his crew is that, the crew works. So why change the crew? Why add to it? Why complicate things?
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Especially with somebody they don't know.
Why are you gonna bring in somebody that could potentially fuck it up when you're doing stuff just fine?
Yeah.
So I totally get that, and I do like the moment where Beckett, like, calls over. He's like, "Hey, Captain or Commander or General or whatever," and, like, this general walks over and he's like, "This guy here is a deserter," and turns Han in, and he's like, "Whatever he says, he's lying. Like, I don't care what he says about me. I'm obviously with the Empire here. Like, you believe me?" And they're like, "Oh, yep, definitely." Like, throwing that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, like, they just look at his adornments, and that's all. There's no actual chain of command, or
Nope.
there's no
He's got-
record keeping.
He's got a name tag that says
He's got the coat. Yeah,
General
he's wearing
so-and-so,
Yeah, he's wearing the right
Captain
coat.
Whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I do want to back
Now-
up for a minute because there's two
Go for it.
things I do want to address that essentially happen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
One is so when Han gets through this checkpoint ticket gate or whatever, when Han tries to bribe his way through TSA, right? And his girl Kira's got this little vial of coaxium.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning of the movie, there's it's not a fortune cookie and it's not a newsreel, but it's just like it's not an opening crawl. So this movie starts in a completely different fashion than either the opening crawl of the episodic adventures or Rogue One. So it looks like there's not going to be a standardized beginning to a Star Wars story, Tales.
Yeah.
Which is fine, whatever. I expected it to be more similar to Rogue One, but that's fine. They're not going to be locked into this is the way we have to start the movie, and there's this thing, and then we pan down from a starship, and blah, 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 blah. That's fine. But it talks about how it's like I don't remember exactly what it says. Do you?
No. There's definitely just a one-liner, two-liner of text introduction that happens. We still get the "a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away," and then additional text comes on to kind of explain where we are in the time frame, and where we are in the galaxy.
It starts with, "It is a lawless time. Crime syndicates compete for resources, food, medicine, and hyperfuel." And then there's a couple more lines. But hyperfuel is interesting to me. Like this coaxium is a super, super hot commodity, which comes up later, so I'll leave it for them. But they got this vial while on Corellia, and they use it to try to bribe their way through TSA. Han makes it through. Kira doesn't. This is what puts Han on the course of joining the Imperial Academy so that he can become a successful person and then eventually go back and save her, right? So when he looks up and he sees that the recruiting office essentially is what it is.
Yeah.
You can hear the Imperial March coming out of that office. It's completely diegetic. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. Cuz it's funny cuz it's the same theme but in a positive key sort of, but it's definitely the exact same John Williams theme.
Right.
That's playing. Because this has already come up once in Rebels.
Okay.
So they're re-canonizing something that's already kind of happened.
Okay.
Which I find very interesting. I agree though. As my theater definitely got a good laugh out of that playing over the speakers.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. So the group of people the theater that I was in was relatively quiet most of the time. There was some applause and some woohoos and whatnot, but that was more later on. This was early enough in the movie that I think everybody was still
they were pumped for some.
They were pumped and
Star Wars
quiet,
action,
and there was little fanfare.
Yeah, my theater was a little rowdy. I went to a theater in Hollywood, the El Capitan. They were doing the whole like fan event thing that was happening.
Yeah, I guess my theater had like a fan event too, because there were there was a Boba Fett, there was a Shadow Trooper, there was a whole bunch of 501st members there, but there was only like 2 or 3 that were in costume. Everybody else just had their like 501st bowling shirts on.
Oh yeah.
Vader's Fist Garrison, which I guess is the one for out here. I don't know if it's St. Louis, Kansas City, Illinois. I don't know exactly where Vader's Fist is
Just somewhere
centralized.
Midwest.
Yeah, but it's
Related.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
So
the closest one to my current location. I can tell you that much.
yeah, so my crowd definitely was more active with the let's say fan servicey moments, of which this movie does have a lot. Really quick, I do want to take one more step back,
Okay.
and we have to talk about the way in which this movie was shot, and by shot I mean
Okay.
reshot.
Okay.
I think it's really important to note. I've talked about kind of fair judgment, or making the attempt at fair judgment with each episode of Clone Wars,
Okay.
and this one exists in its own weird little world too, where its production began in January 2017, and then by June we had received public word that the original directors, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller.
Yep.
Right.
And these would be the two gentlemen that made the Lego movie, which I think is what
Yep.
sold Lucasfilm on them directing Solo.
Yeah, it'd be the Lego movie, and they directed both 21 and 22 Jump Street. So,
Which were
they
good in their own right.
yeah, they've made great movies. And I guess they were hoping for some magic here, but there's an issue with, from what I hear, that they were kind of going off script, which when you're carrying a $200 million plus movie.
Yeah, so I
is
was reading
not
a
a
little
thing
bit
to
about
do.
it today, and they
Yeah.
are more of an improvisational type of director, where they're encouraging that charisma between their actors. Like, we'll set up. This is the shot we're gonna do, and they'll shoot 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 takes with some improvisational material and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that with a ball of yarn the size of the Star Wars galaxy, there is less room for improvisation, and
Yes.
things are more set in stone when they happen. Ryan Johnson talks about how he was writing The Last Jedi while The Force Awakens was being filmed.
Yes.
So he
Yeah.
was writing to things that were being filmed, and later when the movie was edited and cut together, there were certain things that didn't make it, but there was scenes that Ryan Johnson had poured his heart into and really, really written into The Last Jedi that he then had to decide, okay, does this still make sense? And one of them was like the passing of the dice, because
Yeah.
as we see, Han Solo's got these like brass dice on like a key ring, essentially, and that's his good luck charm. So those dice appeared in The Force Awakens,
Yeah.
but that is a deleted scene, so Ryan Johnson had like already written this thing. So all that being said, what I'm getting at is that you can't have a director on a movie in a multi-part story such as this that is more free form with the way that they are going to compose their movie.
Yes.
It's simply too complicated. Not that it's ineffective, not that it wouldn't work, not that it could have been the greatest fucking movie ever, right? It's just too complicated.
Well, it's not only that. It's the issue that you have to have actors who are also capable of it, right?
Very true.
That's a different skill set. Coming up with your own lines, no. Acting is taking a character, making it your own, and living that thoroughly. But in terms of storytelling, the director's job is to direct you towards what they want. And when they're literally kind of telling you to, just say whatever comes to mind, that's not directing, right? Like,
Right.
directing, there are of course different styles to directing, such as improv style, but there's still the idea that you have to set tone, right?
Right.
Even regarding improv, you still have to set the tone of the film. And when you have a bunch of actors who, it doesn't matter how much they might have prepped for it, when it comes to day of and suddenly you're offering them to kind of come up with their own thing. It'd be one thing if an actor does think of something and approaches the director and is like, hey, I really think maybe in this instance, you know, like infamously with the Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark, when the dude's doing a bunch of sword swings and Harrison Ford, he was very sick that day.
He had the squirts.
Yes. So he just suggests, why don't I just shoot the motherfucker,
Yeah,
right?
Like, he's like, Steven, I can't go through another fight scene. Like, this isn't going to work. I need to rest. Like,
Yeah.
Can I just shoot the guy? And
Yeah.
that'll be the end of it. And then I can go back to my hotel room and vomit and shit all over the place.
Yes. So that's the idea of working together, right? But it's not as if Steven went, you know, just go ahead, fight him how you want, and we're just gonna follow you with cameras. Like, no, it's not how that works.
No, it's not.
So with what, like, it was something crazy, like what, just a handful of weeks left to go in
Yeah, I don't
actual production time.
I don't remember. I read today that Ron Howard reshot 70% of what Phil and Chris had.
Yes.
Reshot 85%.
It's a big percentage.
So
'cause
it's either he reshot 85% of the footage that they had already done, which comprised of 70% of the movie, or he reshot 70%, which comprised of 85% of the entire film.
Either way, Ron Howard steps in with essentially zero pre-production time.
Right.
Which is very important, right? It's not like...
Well, he's running
like,
he's running off of the quote-unquote pre-production that was done for what the director's duo was working on up to that point.
Yes.
So he hit the ground running.
Yeah, so like the idea I'm trying to get across is that, you know, it's not like a director just looks at a script and then immediately is like, why, yes, I understand every facet of the story, so we're going to film it, and I'm going to... Again, it comes back to setting tone, right?
Right.
A director has to sit with this and think about it and understand deciding how to tell the story is as important as actually telling the story, right?
Right.
So you have Ron Howard, who by all accounts I've heard, steps in and runs a super tight ship compared to Chris Miller and Phil Lord. And so he steps in June of 2017. The movie is released at the end of May here. But production, by all means, ended, like, what, November? Something like that? So
I think
the post-production on this was quick.
October 17th they wrapped.
Yeah, so either way, so, like, they were working on special... Like, essentially, production and post-production were happening at the same time, which is its own crazy beast. If you're trying to shoot a movie and you're trying to finalize shots and sound design and music, that's you know, this film is definitely a crazy undertaking, and by virtue that something complete was delivered, you know, because like 10 years ago the first standalone Wolverine movie came out, and that was with the director who was there the entire time and sat through pre-production, production, post-production. Supposedly there's some meddling from Fox, 20th Century Fox, that happens, but the movie as released has like unfinished special effects and plot holes that
Are you
get
talking
dropped.
about X-Men
Origins? Yep,
Wolverine?
the first.
Okay.
Yep, the first spinoff. The first movie with Deadpool.
So was that James Mangold?
That one was not. That was Gavin Hood, I believe,
Okay.
is his name.
So
Yeah.
Mangold
James
just
Mangold
did
takes up
Wolverine and Logan. Okay.
Yep. So different director for the first one. South African director, I want to say.
Yeah, I'm not super
So,
familiar.
So all of this to kind of bring up that the achievement of Ron Howard and the larger production team, everybody at Lucasfilm, for kind of sticking and siding with the writers Lawrence Kasdan and his son Jonathan Kasdan. From what I hear, like, Lawrence Kasdan was expressing concern that, hey, I delivered a fairly tight script, and you guys are not filming the script. What is happening here?
Like, I did,
Ron steps
essentially,
in.
I did my job, you do yours.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So Ron steps in, and I have to say, in terms of like shot compositions and lighting, this is one of the more fascinating Star Wars to look at. The lighting design changes depending on the planet you're on sometimes, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is one of my gripes with this film, is that, like, when it's bright, it's very bright.
Yes.
When it's not bright, I don't want to say dark, because people equate dark with like the
DC?
Dark Knight, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I'm talking about as far as lighting levels
But like
go.
physically
When
light,
it's dim,
lit darkly.
It is dim and muddy, and not muddy because we're talking about Mimban, but sometimes it gets to the point where it's hard to see what the fuck is going on.
I don't disagree there. But what's interesting is, to me, the stuff on Mimban was fine, despite how muddy and low contrasted that scene was. I think it was appropriate to that scene. Now, when we get to Kessel and we're like inside some spice mines on Kessel,
That's where it hit me.
I will agree
lot.
with you there. Things
So
get confusing.
do you remember 3D special effects like 10 years ago, when you would go to the theater and you would wear your 3D glasses and everything just not... It looked like there was that extra filter that you were viewing the movie. But
You're
I mean,
literally wearing sunglasses to watch a movie.
You
is
literally
what's happening.
are, but
Yeah.
that's the way that I felt that some of the visuals came across in Solo.
Yes.
So
I will
it
agree
definitely
with you.
Took something away.
Yeah, I will agree with you on Kessel.
Yep.
The other scenes, I felt they hit a nice contrast, because even in the first scene on Corellia with Lady Proxima, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of part of the plot point of them kind of being basked in darkness, right? When it comes to how light affects Lady Proxima.
Yeah, that was plot point out of nowhere, but it worked.
Yeah.
Like Han gets away from this giant underwater worm overlord by throwing a rock through a window, essentially.
Yeah,
and they're like burned by the light.
Yeah, like, why isn't that just reinforced with something not that could be tossed?
Yeah, instead of like a
and
tarp
cut by a rock?
or a piece of cardboard. Yeah. I don't know. Like that was cool. That worked. I'm good with all that.
And again, the special effects on Lady Proxima were amazing. I thought I was very impressed by whether that was puppetry or whatever. Or,
I think it was
other
both, because like
like there's puppets with enhancement. It seemed right.
Kind of like
the character.
Uncar
Yeah, the character I really dug was what's his name? It's Jon Favreau played him. Rio.
Yeah.
Right? Rio.
I don't even have I have no notes or anything about Jon Favreau's character, but yes. He's like a four-armed kind of primate like alien.
Yeah, he's an alien of some sort. He's very short in stature, has a very distinct accent. Not as bad as, say, anything from Phantom Menace, I would say.
Yeah, he sounds like Jon Favreau putting on a voice.
Yes, it's definitely just Jon Favreau. Like, as soon as that voice came out, I'm like, that's Jon Favreau.
Yep.
So, again, all of this to kind of say that as we try to not surpass 90 minutes on this one.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to be more reactionary to this one than a full deep dive review of it. I, on the whole, am just pleasantly surprised that we have a finished movie, period. Right?
Yeah, amazingly, everything came together.
Yes.
And then we were able to view that 4 days ago and talk about it today. There's a few things that I need to point out. And
Yes, go ahead.
We can hash out our opinions on them. So at the beginning of the movie, it's just Han. That's his name is Han. And
Yes.
when he goes to sign up at the Imperial Academy, the guy's like, "You got a last name?" And he's like, "Nope, it's just Han." And he's like, "Oh, okay, Han Solo." And like gives him that name because he only had one name. So he's like, "Okay, just Solo, Han, that's it? Okay, Han Solo, that's who you are, Han Solo. Here you go, stamp your fucking thing, on the way."
Yeah, essentially in my... Again, I made the offhand comment earlier that things get fan servicey. The origins of his name was not something I needed,
Here's
but...
a great origin to his name. His dad was so-and-so Solo. Done. He's got a fucking last name. Like, it's stupid.
Well, to me, the name Han Solo was always too on the nose for that character, right? As if, like, if Luke's original name, Starkiller, stuck, right?
Or if in
like,
the prequels...
whose last name is Starkiller, right?
Right. Or if in the prequels it was Anakin, that was it. It was just Anakin, but he's such a stellar fucking pilot. He like walks the skies, so they start calling him Skywalker, right? No. Like, it's fine. Just like give people names. Nobody asks like why Mace Windu's last name is Windu. Is it because he got thrown out a window? No. It doesn't matter. It's just a name.
I agree that it's a really weird point, but again, Solo is too on the nose for the character trope of, like, loner dude with fuzzy walking carpet character from A New Hope, that having to justify a name like Han Solo, I don't think is unnecessary, but I also agree with you that the explicit way in which it was handled also was unsatisfying.
I don't even think you need to handle it, is what I'm saying. Like, it's just his fucking name's Han Solo. It's been Han Solo. It's always been Han Solo.
Yeah.
But apparently it hasn't always been Han Solo. He used to just be Han. And because his name was Solo, somebody tacked Solo on the end of it. Like, no. Just, you took up time where you didn't need to, and you just, like he says, I want to sign up for the Imperial Academy. Great. What's your name, kid? Han Solo. Awesome. Stamp. Here's your document.
Moving on.
You know, I'm going to be a pilot. Sure you are. All right. Infantry it is for you. Like, let's get going.
See, to me, it's like the only thing I will buy, and it's not something I thought about before us recording this, is that it's again, if equating him to like Aladdin, right? The street rat. Aladdin was just an orphan, raised by himself, raised by the streets, I guess, right? So Han has the name Han, so a surname wasn't something that he ever had because it wasn't something that was ever given to him.
But doesn't he talk about his dad specifically and how his dad worked in the like in the shipyards, like building ships, and like it was his dad's goal to... That's why they want... What's the ship they want? There's like a specific ship that he and Kira are going... That's what they're after. That's their end goal. I don't remember what it is. It's not a YT-1300, but he's got a goal in mind, and it's because that's what his dad built in the shipyard. So
again, maybe it's like working class family that don't have last names, right? Like John Blacksmith, right? Like,
yeah.
And then eventually when surnames needed become a thing, it's like, oh, you're a Smith.
Yeah.
We're making you a damn Smith.
I mean,
you're all Smiths.
I guess.
Shoemaker, great. Go for it, Shoemaker.
Right.
And you shall be the clan of Shoemakers. Like that's how I saw it. That's how I saw this universe is like.
So did Harrison Ford's dad work in a fucking Ford plant? And they're like, he like signed up to be a carpenter on a movie back in 1977, and somebody was like, hey kid, what's your name? And he's like, I'm Harrison. He's like, oh, I see you're driving a Ford
You're driving
there.
a Ford? Great.
Harrison Ford.
Yeah,
know?
I imagine that's essentially what happened. Yeah. See, again, I don't disagree that there are that whole thing before regarding the achievements of Ron Howard was to kind of then fairly lay waste to there are problems in this movie, right?
Yeah. I guess we don't
So-
know who's responsible for that one. So
I agree that surname is bad. There are, like, personally, I didn't need to see the Kessel Run.
I
But-
didn't need the Kessel Run to be as big of a thing as it was.
Oh, yeah.
Before we get to Kessel Run, let's talk about this meetup with Han and Chewie.
Oh yes, yeah. Let's
So
go for it.
brief breakdown. They're on a mud planet. These officers are like, oh, you're going in the fucking hole with the monster. They just call it like the monster, right?
Yeah.
Like, he hasn't eaten in like 2 days, so it should dispatch you pretty quickly. And I'll be honest, when this happened, they throw Han in this hole full of mud, and they like chain him up. So at the other end of the chain is the monster, right? They throw him down in this hole. He's covered in mud, and then you see like these real close cut shots of said monster. You know, you see like an arm that's
Yeah.
you know,
Just an arm,
coming
just a
out
bit
of
of like waist,
a bit of
shoulder.
waist, a couple of steps. You know, the ankle with a
with the chain on it, right?
Yeah.
On his ankles, yeah.
so.
Yep.
And then it's revealed, and the monster is Chewie.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chewie starts fucking attacking Han, and they're fighting back and forth. And then Han, who's strung up by his feet, and he's like yelling at Chewie, like, stop, whatever, blah, blah. All of a sudden he just goes, "Grr, grr, 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 grr." And at that point I was like, are you fucking serious? Like, I got over that. Like, we all knew that he could understand Chewie.
Yes, yeah.
And at that point, Chewie says something in, it's what, Shirewook, right?
Shiriwook, or yeah,
Shiriwook.
something like that. Yeah.
And Han's like, yeah, I speak a little, but so the whole time, Chewie could understand him and still wanted to eat him anyway. So anyway, they make friends. They break out.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they do it's kind of funny, where they like faux fight, and then Chewie like knocks this fucking pillar down, which collapses the platform, so the two Empire guys fall down in there. And then don't you see Han like fly out because Chewie just like threw him out, and he's on the other end of the chain, and then essentially Han would like pull him up. Then they hook up with Beckett, blah blah blah. So overall, I thought it worked well. It's a little different depiction of kind of what we knew of where Chewie came from.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that it was perilous enough that Chewie owes a life debt to Han for the next 45 years.
No, here's what gets undone. There is no life debt. There is no life debt.
So
I
Chewie's
was
just,
waiting-
like, hanging out?
Yes, which I personally think strengthens the bond more.
Because they're
That-
actually friends.
Yeah, they're even partners, and not Chewie isn't there just there for a life debt.
So does it make it worse that Chewie abandons his wife and kid and never fucking goes home? Except for like once on Life Day?
I don't know, because I think he's fighting the bigger fight at that point, right?
Kind of. I mean, they're hanging out in a fucking bar on Tatooine. It's not fighting a bigger fight.
Well, because later on, once we get to Kessel, there is the decision he makes,
Right.
and that's what I like about removing the life debt.
Okay.
Is that it is now Chewie's decision.
Okay.
Whether to go with the other Wookiees back to Kashyyyk or stay with the new friends he has made.
Okay. Do you want
Right.
to talk about any of the stuff in between Mimban and Kessel?
Trying to think of what else, because
So we got the train deal that goes on.
Oh, yeah.
And then like Han dumps the shipment, and then
Just
they're
again-
in debt, and we meet Space Vision, and
there are a few things in there.
Okay.
Just really quickly, just as sequences go, there is a train heist that occurs. It is a little overlong based on what the story wants to do, but I will say that I do think it was one of the more exhilarating sequences in a Star Wars film.
It was well done.
Yes, well done, well shot. There's a lot of things happening all at once, and the blocking of the scene is very clear. I understood where things were.
Yes, and also the
yeah.
decisions of our hero/heroes, Han and Chewie, make sense.
Yes.
So at the end of this, because the idea is this train is full of coaxium, and the idea is to steal like multiple train cars of coaxium, right?
Yes.
Beckett's girlfriend/wife/ not really sure female
I
partner.
believe her last name is Beckett as well. So I think Tandy Newton plays Val, and I do believe her last name is Beckett.
So she blows this bridge. She sacrifices herself to get this plan to work. Jon Favreau's character dies trying to get this plan to work.
Yes.
Han recognizes that he needs to cut this shipment loose, otherwise everyone's gonna fucking die. So that's what he does. Like all the decisions in this segment make sense. It's well done. I've got no gripes. It's kind of there out of nowhere, but whatever.
Yeah.
So
Now, again, really quick. So right before this scene, again, the other piece of fan service that I thought was completely unnecessary is that Tobias Beckett dismantles a rifle and transforms it into the blaster that Han has essentially for the rest of his life.
yeah, what is that? It's like a DL9 or I don't remember.
I got nothing. But yeah, like you just see him start to take apart like the longer scope and the longer nozzle off this thing, and then hands Han a blaster.
Yeah, so while Beckett is doing this, he's giving some sort of monologue to Han
Yeah.
about something. I don't know, because once he started fucking with this rifle, I was like, what? He's doing something. What's going on?
Yeah.
So I totally wasn't paying attention to what he was saying,
Yeah.
and I was more interested in what he was doing.
Yeah, there's just something that kind of doesn't feel right in my chest that Han meets Chewbacca and gets his favorite blaster all on the same day, right? Like,
Right.
it's too bloody convenient. It's too goddamn convenient
Right.
as stories for prequels go, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of my note there. But then once we get to Dryden Voss,
And
who is Dude Vision,
yeah. So,
So
there's that.
Go
And
ahead.
then because this whole trainload of coaxium was fucking dumped, they have to figure out a way to make an even bigger score, which is
Yes.
Han comes up with an idea. I did find it interesting that while they're talking to Dryden Voss, like the big boss, because everybody's like, oh, they're just gonna he's gonna kill us, like that's what's gonna happen. And Beckett's like, you guys don't need to show your face, like I was the one in charge here, nobody even knows you, so get out while you can. And Han's like, nah, I'm gonna go, you know.
Yeah.
So Beckett's trying to talk his way out, and Han just keeps interjecting. He's like the new kid on the force at the police force, that is at like the pre catch a fucking crook meeting or whatever, and
Yeah.
they're like, we're gonna go and do this, see? And he's like, yeah, like you know, and he's got his own fucking idea, and you know, we'll wear fake mustaches, and we'll wear silly hats so nobody will know that we're police officers or whatever. That was fun. Like, he's a young, inexperienced kid who's in over his head, and he just keeps fucking trying to talk his way out of it, digging himself into a bigger hole.
He's definitely just trying. The idea that Han is much younger comes across in the characterization of him trying to prove himself.
Yeah.
That I will buy.
But not necessarily the portrayal.
Yeah. And again, because Alden Ehrenreich, he is just so physically different in both features and his voice.
Right.
That it took me a few scenes to accept him as being the same character, but by the end of it, through the course of the film, his mannerisms and his attitude sold me on that part.
I actually got over his voice pretty quickly.
Really?
It was pretty jarring in the beginning, and then probably by the time that we get to Chewie, I'm like, all right, it's like it had smoothed out in my brain. I was all right with the vocal difference.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The last thing I kind of really want to bring up are the other characters that definitely come up.
Okay.
So Dryden Voss, again, another interesting point is that Paul Bettany playing him definitely replaced another actor who was not able to come back for reshoots, so they had to shoot literally every scene.
Which is fucking insane.
Yeah, because he's in it a decent amount. And the fact that Paul Bettany definitely sells this character, he definitely is intimidating as this character. To me, the character still doesn't really hold a lot of menace, but I think that's not really anybody's fault other than maybe the script. Things just aren't tightly packaged there.
Yeah. I will say it's unfortunate that in recent cinema, it's definitely been movie starts, set up protagonist, set up antagonist, clash, antagonist is disposed of.
Yes, yeah. This is definitely a big criticism I have of Marvel films.
Right.
And I think that's what I enjoyed about Rogue One is that there was like a little bad guy for that story in the form of Krennic, but there was like an overarching empire that, for being a standalone film, you still needed to have the full understanding.
We have an overarching bad guy in this film.
Yes, yeah. So that's why I wanted to kind of focus on characters as we try and make our way through this. So the other one we haven't talked about too much would be Lando. So Lando shows up. We get the scene of some Sabak cards, right?
It's very funny that you say that because it is pronounced Sabak and Sabak in the movie. Like they do this thing that we've talked about when talking about the Clone Wars, where they have two characters pronounce the same name or word differently.
Yes,
and they make a point out of it, like Han and Han, Sabak and Sabak. Like
Sabak, yeah. So just regional dialect accents, I guess.
Yeah, it is what it is. But like they do it at least twice to point out that you can pronounce these words differently. Nobody cares. They're just words.
It's just, and they're already made up words for the movie and even in universe. It's just like, who cares? Let's just, Sabak is a thing. Really quickly, again, what I appreciate about the couple of Sabak games that we do see, and something that really, really bothers me in a lot of other movies involving card games, is that Casino Royale is the worst offender of this. The cameras focus too much on the cards and not on the players.
Right. Okay.
Right? But in this movie, they show the cards, but essentially because they're cards that we
they're
humans,
fucking gibberish cards. They don't.
Yeah, they're gibberish to us. So they flash it, but we understand what's happening because Ron Howard is focusing the camera on the reactions of the players. Like one of the card players literally eats their cards. which I thought was hilarious.
I forgot about that until you just said. Have you seen Maverick, the movie?
No.
Go watch Maverick. That's all
What
I'm
is
gonna
Maverick? Okay.
say. Just go watch it. It's good.
Okay. So we have Lando, played by Donald Glover / not Childish Gambino in this film.
Not at all.
Yeah, very, very different than the recent Childish Gambino video that has been released.
Haven't watched it yet. So
You're a monster. So I thought he did really good.
And what about the character of the Millennium Falcon itself?
That's what I was getting towards. So L3-37 is a droid companion of Lando, right?
Maybe a sexual companion as well.
Yes. L3 kind of brings up that Lando has feelings for her.
Yeah, and it's brought up in an interesting way because she's like that. She's having like girl talk with Kira, and she was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
he loves me. I know he loves me. He just won't admit he loves me." Like she has that conversation.
Yes. It's very explicit, and I was also slightly uncomfortable because there definitely was like a 4-year-old child next to me while they were discussing how a robosexual relationship would work out.
Like how does that work?
Yeah, like where are things getting plugged into which ports? Like,
I don't know.
so yeah, so there are discussions of a robosexual relationship that may or may not be a thing in the Star Wars universe.
And if it is, it is. Whatever, man.
Yeah. So I really
I would
liked,
imagine that there are probably robosexual relationships happening on our planet.
yeah, surely a lot of them in Japan, with all the advanced technology they have and VR and all that stuff. Here's the major spoiler part. What I liked about L3 is that it, again, in a fan service way, it explains a few lines of dialogue that C-3PO has in other films regarding the Millennium Falcon.
Okay.
C-3PO, I don't know if you recall this, but he mentions that in kind of interfacing with the Falcon, C-3PO mentions that the Falcon has an interesting dialect.
Yep.
So that definitely gets explained away here when L3 doesn't quite make it, but they
interface her
transfer.
into.
Yep.
They essentially transfer her consciousness into the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Which
into the Falcon. Yeah.
I always thought that the Falcon had like 2 brains, and that's why it was like a complicated ass fucking ship. So maybe incorporating that like would have worked well. Or some, even like a one-line throwaway of, well, if we upload her, like, is she going to be compatible with the fucking current brain that's there,
Yeah.
Because there's already something powering the ship, I guess.
Yeah.
Is my point.
Like there's probably like a basic operating system that is handling ship-wide functions.
Right.
And then she gets imported because she has apparently some of the most complete and best navigational maps.
Right.
Of
So
any
they
droid.
should have just asked the Falcon where Luke was, and they wouldn't have had to wait for...
Yeah, I don't disagree that was something that did cross my mind. I think what they were missing was like I'm sure the ship could have figured out that last piece, but they wouldn't have been able to figure out where Luke was in that last piece.
Yeah.
Right. So, the other thing that was brought to my attention, this was not something I knew before today, but in the Last Jedi novelization, there is a few lines of novelization of writing that explains that R2 is able to better interface with the Falcon than C-3PO because there are, in fact, 3 distinct voices that are happening in the Falcon, and one of them likes being told new jokes, and R2 is happy to oblige.
Interesting.
So
there's L3 and there's There's like
whatever
default,
original
there's
operating
default
system.
Falcon, there's L3, and there's
something
else.
Something in there. And,
Cool.
But, you know,
I'm
remember
down with
between Solo and Last Jedi, we're talking about like what, 40 years ish.
Yes, and speaking of which, I
Mm-hmm.
have a little bit of background history on the Falcon, and this is only considering its age. The Falcon was built in BBY 85.
So it's an old
So, yes, at this point, at the beginning of Solo, it is 72 years old.
Mm-hmm.
When we see the Falcon, it is 75 years old. So, canonically, the first time that we see the Falcon is when Han and Lando go back and they're looking at the ship and it's all shiny and pretty and white and everything's clean on the inside. It is 75 years old. This puts it at 85 during A New Hope, 88 in Empire. It would be 90 in Return of the Jedi, and then how many years later is
like 130, like 40-ish years later. I don't.
Yeah.
For Force Awakens and Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the realm of 40-ish, but I don't believe it's ever been fully settled.
Yeah, it's 125 to 130 years old in The Last Jedi.
Yep, that is interesting. Yeah, the depiction of the Falcon I really enjoyed, especially going from clean and cared for under Lando's watch to the hunk of junk that we know it as once Han gets his hands on it.
Yeah, speaking of clean and cared for, what'd you think of the Han Chewie shower scene?
Yes, that was another interesting little moment that happens again with what was definitely a 4-year-old child next to me.
I thought it was fucking hilarious.
I thought it was great.
It's not explicit, so
because it's definitely just one of those like wonderful little comedic moments of just uncomfortable humor, right? Which is definitely in my bag of humor. Uncomfortable characters, I'm always a huge fan of. So that was very interesting.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Like,
so
no lies, thought it was awesome.
And again, this only goes to strengthen Chewie and Han's relationship of they've seen each other's wang doodles, and it's not a life debt keeping them together. It's just a
wang doodles.
It's just a shared love of the adventure, I guess, and
heterosexual life mates.
Yep, exactly. So the only other last brief bits of fan service regarding casting before we get to some casting that is I wouldn't consider it fan servicey, but there's something more. But Warwick Davis coming back as Weasel.
Yeah, coming back as Weasel?
Yeah, because that's the character. That's definitely Weasel from Phantom Menace.
Is it?
I would think so.
I didn't know that the names were both Weasel, so shame on me.
There you go. So Warwick Davis definitely shows up, and he's definitely the dude that was watching the pod races with Watto.
I knew that
on Tatooine.
Warwick Davis was watching the pod races with Watto. I did not know the character's name.
It was Weasel. Yeah.
Nice.
Because I definitely, again, in my theater, it was filled with a bunch of rowdy fans that both hurt and enhanced my viewing all at the same time.
Of course.
But definitely as soon as that helmet came off, you could definitely hear a lot, well, me included, like gasps and like, oh shit, and like whoop, and then confused other people like, what are you guys talking about?
Who gives a fuck that Willow is in this movie?
Yes. Or actually the guy next to me, I'm pretty bad. I really hate when people talk during a movie, but because he was surrounded by like what looked like a 4-year-old girl and like a 3-year-old son flanking both of his sides, the dude was definitely over-explaining shit
out
loud in like a normal tone, and definitely a few people shushed him, and I definitely kind of gave him a few glares myself. But because he was like with children, I didn't want to like outright yell at him over a child's head.
Right.
But so when Warwick Davis shows up, the guy leans over to the girl and goes, "That's the guy who played R2." My heart just wanted to punch this guy right then and there.
Yeah.
That one for sure was, I definitely gave him a hard look at that moment. But anyways, yeah, Warwick Davis did not play R2. That would be Kenny Baker, who has passed on.
The late Kenny Baker.
Yes. So anyways, so that was kind of the last fan servicey one. The cute one is Clint Howard.
I heard one other one later when we get to Kessel.
Are you talking about the other Wookiee?
No.
Is that who it was? Or no?
So when we get to Kessel, all kinds of fucking pandemonium happens.
Yes. Yeah.
Han and his crew are trying to steal like unfiltered or unprocessed coaxium.
Yes.
Out of the spice mines of Kessel, because that makes sense.
Yep.
And L3 like meets this droid and talks this droid into, like, at first it's a joke. She like pushes the droid out of the way and she's like, "All right, your job's over. Like, I'm taking over. Like, go ahead." And it's like beep 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 or whatever, and she goes, "I don't know, like, go free all of your droid brothers and sisters." Like, it comes off as a joke, but then there's totally this fucking droid rebellion, which is cool. And then Chewie sees a bunch of Wookiees, and so he parts ways from Han, and they have a little heart-touching moment. Like, Han's like, "No, I know you need to do what you need to do. Like, go save your people." Yeah, and that's cool. So we've got all this pandemonium going on, but when the little droid like rolls up to another droid, says something to somebody, I swear that it was Anthony Daniels, like, has one line voicing one other droid that's not C-3PO, because C-3PO and R2 are not in this movie.
I did see that Daniels is in this film. I didn't catch that personally. So you're definitely onto something, because I did see that mentioned.
He does the voice of a droid, and it's a one-liner thing. I don't know if it's like this droid that L3 like pushed off, or if L3 is like talking to another droid via radio, essentially, and that droid has like one line of like 5 words, and that's it. And I looked at my wife and I said, "That was Anthony Daniels."
Which, if true, means Anthony Daniels continues the streak of having been in every live-action Star Wars film, correct?
Correct.
This would be the first film, however, that C-3PO and R2 do not appear in.
This is the only live-action Star Wars that C-3PO and R2 are not in.
Yes.
And also does not include a Skywalker.
That is true, yes. Now, let's get to the last one, because I was really hoping that this would kind of be the first Jedi-less Star Wars film.
Okay.
But then we do get somebody towards the end.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to talk about the person that Chewbacca meets along the way, which is probably like the other Wookiee. Okay.
Yes, there is another thin Wookiee that's definitely malnourished that shows up. Yes.
Yes. And I think that she might be more than just malnourished. I think it's Malowaka, is that what her name is?
No, I got nothing for you on that one.
You've seen the Star Wars Holiday Special, right?
Yes.
What is her name?
I'm not gonna lie. When other, as Kevin was saying, when Chewie runs off because he sees other Wookiees, I was preemptively getting giddy because I was really hoping it was Lumpy.
Yeah,
it is not Lumpy. So let's
it is not
get that clear
Lumpy.
now. It is not Lumpy. I was really, really hopeful it was Lumpy. But yeah, so as to who the other Wookiees that appear are, I got nothing for you on that.
So her name is just Malla, Malla, and that's like the shortened. So that's like the Chewie to her Mal something or other. But I'm having trouble finding her full name. But I figured that that's who it was. So it's Malla in the holiday special. I don't know about Solo.
I don't.
The Star
Are
Wars
you talking
story.
about the one that's trying to tell Chewie to go with them when they're running off Kessel?
Yes. So the one where they like embrace and they like touch forehead to forehead. I figured.
Because I definitely thought that was a dude Wookiee, personally.
I thought it was a female Wookiee. I mean, I guess I just figured that it was Malla, right?
Yeah, it looked like a dude Wookiee to me, and there was nothing.
And
nothing was
Here's what I think would have been beneficial. Here's what I think should have happened here. I think he should have seen like a pregnant Wookiee.
Yeah.
And fucking been like, "Yo, Han, I gotta go." Then he fucking runs over there. He saves the Wookiees, and two of the Wookiees are his pregnant wife and his dad.
Yeah.
Right? And then they have a little embrace. You could even have like the one time only that there's been like subtitles for any Wookiees, or you could have Han close enough, or say something later like, was that your, like your family's expanding or something, and like she's pregnant, right? And because you've got to think that 11 years later is when the whole Life Day thing is, and Lumpy is a kid. So you're going to correct me and tell me how old Lumpy is.
No, I have nothing on Lumpy. Here's why I disagree that this other Wookiee character has to be a relation or somebody known to Chewie.
Uh-huh.
I found it very much more powerful that it was another Wookiee that was trying to get Chewie to go with them on the basis of being the same species, because in the scenes before where Chewie explains his upbringing on Kashyyyk, Han is doing some translating, and then there's one word that Han can't translate completely.
Oh, yeah.
And he says
or
family
tribe.
or tribe. And then Beckett says, what's the difference? Right?
Right.
To me, that is paid off in the scene on Kessel where blood relation, marriage relation or not, all the Wookiees stick together because they are one tribe, right? That's what I got out of that moment on Kessel.
That's fine. I'm going to stick with it's Chewie's wife.
All right, so we're getting long here, so let's get wrapping up. There's one last big reveal, I would say.
You want to
Is there anything else
you want to talk about like the nonsense of the Kessel Run? I'll just run through it real quick.
Yeah, just
Kessel Run, so they get the shit, and coaxium is like unstable, so it overheats or some shit and then blows up, right?
Yeah.
So they have to do the quote-unquote Kessel Run, which the planet of Kessel is located like in the Maw, which originally was from the EU, but it's a group of black holes at the center of the galaxy. Mm-hmm. This is where all of the galaxy originated. So what's left is a whole bunch of black holes and then like one planet in the middle, which apparently is Kessel, for the sake of this story. So they have to navigate through all these black holes to get from point A, Kessel, out away from the detrimental gravity wells.
Yep.
This is called the Kessel Run, and this is 20 miles. So to travel from point A to point B of 20 miles, it takes 20 miles worth of time. So if you're going at 10 miles an hour, it takes you 2 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is that because they upload L3 and she's got all this data and all this other stuff, they're able to use the gravity of the black holes to like bend the distance and make a 20-mile journey in 12 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why the Millennium Falcon made the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs. And which is why it's a unit of distance and not time, and it's silly, and there's a giant fucking space octopus kraken monster that Han distracts by shooting out an escape pod, which is the thing that's in between the mandibles of the Millennium Falcon, which is so many nerd fans got pissed off about to begin with. And then as they're nearly being sucked into a black hole, which isn't the way that black holes work, like all these shieldings and things are ripped off of the Falcon to make it old and trashy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
which is dumb.
Like, as I said before, the Kessel Run was not something I needed to see explicitly, right?
Right.
So, as shot, I will say it was exciting to a certain point. I think it does come across that by the time we get to A New Hope, using the Kessel Run to explain it's Han explaining his skills as a navigator, not the ship's speed. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I get out of this sequence. Because you have to remember, so it's...
Because like Han had nothing to do with it.
Well, he took the shortcut as given by L3, yeah. But that's why he's still kind of selling the... it's the ship that made the Kessel Run in blah, 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 because it has navigational systems that other ships do not. Right? So it's not about how fast you're going, it's about the route you take.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So that's what came across in the sequence for me. It's, again, definitely another bit of fan service of like, oh shit, here it is. We finally get to see the Kessel Run that Han talked about in A New Hope. And here it is with space whales. And
how awesome would it have been if it wasn't even Han that did the fucking Kessel Run? Although, I guess, again, in Force Awakens, doesn't Rey say... You talking to Han, made the Kessel Run in 14 parsecs, and he's like 12.
Yeah,
but
so it all comes back.
If it wasn't for that line, it would have been cool. If it wasn't even Han, like it was the Millennium Falcon that did it, but Han wasn't even fucking there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, we'll fast forward all the way to the end of this. Like by bending space time, Han's able to not have this ship blow up, and then there's a series of backstabbings, and I think literal backstabbings. Dryden Voss ends up dead.
Yep.
The big baddie
at the hand of Kira. Yep.
Of the Cloud Riders gang, which is the first time that we've talked about these people, but they're the ones that were also trying to steal the coaxium. Turns out to be this girl.
Yep, just a young little girl trying to...
I honestly thought that was the daughter of Beckett and Beckett, like when she pulled her helmet off.
I don't know. I didn't see it. I don't see it. I didn't see the resemblance.
I don't think there was a resemblance. But when she pulled the helmet off and it was like a young girl, and Beckett looked at her and he was like, I thought he said something like, "Oh shit, it's you" or something like that. I thought he was gonna, I thought that was going to be a reveal. Because I'm used to, there has to be a reveal, right?
No, I think the reveal was just that it was a girl, not a, big, beefed-up dude gangster guy, right? Okay. That's what Beckett was displaying shock towards, was
okay,
oh, shit, we've been fighting this tiny little person this entire time? You've been kicking our asses almost?
So Beckett ends up dead, right?
Yep, Beckett ends up dead.
Dead. Dryden's
dead. Another
Lando
quick fan service moment is Han shoots first when Beckett is trying to monologue.
Oh, absolutely.
Han just shoots first.
It was great.
Yep, fantastic. Okay, so moving on. Let's skip to the big reveal.
Yep. You got it. It's yours.
So, big reveal. Kira, after killing Dryden, takes Dryden's ship and contacts a third party Crimson Dawn that they kind of allude to as being another bigger criminal organization out there to worry about. And so Hologram comes up, hooded character is being spoken to by Kira.
And you see
Hood
this
comes
hood from
down.
the back.
Yep.
And I was thinking to myself, like, saw a hood. Oh, this must be the Emperor. Then I looked and I was like, this is not the Emperor's hood.
Yes, I agree. For a half second, I saw Hood, also thought Emperor. And then even in the blueness of Hologram, you could tell that the Hood was not as dark as it would be if it were indeed the Emperor.
Correct.
So Hood comes down, and it is, in fact, Darth Maul.
It is Maul. He is no longer
yeah, just
Darth
Maul.
Maul.
Yeah, just Maul. Yep. So it is Maul. It's definitely Ray Park playing Maul again. Apparently, Sam Witwer is providing the voice.
Yes, Sam Witwer does the voice of Maul in the Clone Wars animated television program, so we will get to him, and in Rebels.
Yes.
So it is not Peter Serafinowicz, who was Maul in The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
But it is the canon voice of Maul thereafter.
In everything else.
Yes.
Regarding. This was an interesting reveal. This is definitely the one part of the movie that they allude to, but in this story specifically, doesn't quite lead anywhere, but it definitely is some universe building, connecting things happening here.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily do anything except for open up nerds' eyes to the possibilities of other things happening.
Yes. And also, another thing to kind of bring up is, like, you and I are definitely in a deeper echelon of Star Wars nerddom that we weren't surprised, or we were surprised. I was surprised by the appearance of Maul, but I wasn't surprised at his aliveness, because I have already heard, Star Wars fans who did not catch up on the rest of the going-ons of things.
If the only thing that you've seen is the movies, the theatrical movies, this would be a shock that Darth Maul is alive.
Yes.
Right, but if you've seen
Clone
half
Wars
of the
or
seasons
Rebels
of Clone Wars or half of the seasons of Rebels, then you would know that this character did not
is alive
in fact
and well.
die on Naboo.
Yes. And they definitely everything lines up in terms of his look. He stands up at some point, which in my head I just had a weird reference to Forrest Gump, where I'm like, Darth Maul, you got new legs.
I immediately was like staring at the bottom of the screen, eyes as open as could be, trying to like see what type of leg situation he had going on. I wasn't entirely sure that it was Ray Park to begin with, so I had to look that up after the movie, which it is.
To me, it definitely is Ray Park. And what's really interesting, too, is just by coincidence, I had this thought where, considering that both Maul and Weasel are in this film from Phantom Menace, the amount of time that has passed in real Earth time between 1999 to now
is essentially the amount of time that passed in the Star Wars universe.
Just a little less in real world time versus movie time. But
yeah, because it would be like, 19 years versus like 22 years, somewhere around
22, 23, we're real close. Close enough that the idea of getting the same actors and that they would actually be age appropriate, to reprise these roles, I think is just fucking hilarious in a cosmic coincidence sense.
It reminds me of when I saw The Phantom Menace the first time, and I saw Senator Palpatine.
Yes.
And I was like,
he looks familiar.
I was like, this guy looks familiar. And then there was, like the Darth Sidious, which he didn't really have a name at that point. And I was like, wait a second, this guy's the Emperor. And then I was like, you know what? they got somebody that looks a hell of a lot like the dude
Like-
that played the Emperor.
In Jedi.
And
yeah.
then I saw the
Yep.
credits, and I was like, wow, my fucking... I didn't even remember how old I was then. My 16-year-old brain is, like, fried right now that they were able to make... Like, he used to be old, and now he's young. Like, how the fuck does this work?
The power of movie magic.
Yeah.
So that definitely was I think the big moment for Solo is the reveal of Maul, and that's the one that definitely because this is very much unlike Rogue One, where to me Rogue One was a standalone story that wrapped everything up.
Yep.
There is nothing left to tell of those characters because they're dead.
Yeah, this should be called Solo, part of more Star Wars stories.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So there's definitely a little bit of setting up for maybe either like Solo's own trilogy or Solo's own series of films, or getting handed off maybe, it's essentially with these films there's no rules. So like if Lando gets his own film, then maybe some of these plot threads get picked up or whatever.
Right.
Obi-Wan's film, starring
Yes.
McGregor, hopefully.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I found it very interesting that Lucasfilm at this point is trying to weave the threads in a way that Marvel definitely tried
Definitely doing
early
that
on.
more and more
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, because by the time we got to Iron Man 2, they were dropping all the threads for Avengers Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Fury is there talking to Tony Stark, and
Yeah.
so the version here is that we have Maul showing up, and
Now, Rogue One did start doing this by... it was almost like a checklist, right? When they go and to steal the plans, and the name of the plans is under Stardust, right?
yep.
And then there's also like Darksaber, and
Darksaber.
there's something about like tracking through hyperspace project.
Yes,
and
yeah.
there's other things that are going on. In this one, there was definitely name dropping. They talk about Felucia. They name drop.
One other big name drop to mention too is they name drop Black Spire.
Right.
So this is significant because as of this recording, a few days ago, Disney Parks announced that regarding Star Wars Land, we know the real world name of it will officially be referred to as
Batu.
Galaxy's Edge.
Galaxy's Edge
The planet
is Batu.
Batu, now the port city
Is
Black Spire.
yes.
So there is a reason for the Falcon to be visiting in universe this
Right.
port city
Location.
of
Yep.
of Black Spire
Yes.
on Batu.
Yes.
So whereas Rogue One dropped like little nuggets, and like Chopper shows up, and like Captain Syndulla, please show up.
Yeah.
Like
General Syndulla.
General Syndulla, yes, that's right.
And the ghost is in the battle.
Yep. Over Scarif, right?
Yep.
Scarif,
Yep.
yeah. Like there are connections, but here in Solo there are open threads.
Yeah.
I would say. So the other one has connections. This one opens up a new box with untied threads, with very loose threads just hanging there. The story for the film itself is definitely complete, but throwing Maul in there is definitely just a big mystery box that
Yeah.
we aren't sure what's happening with after this. So
Yes. And side note, Maul, my favorite Star Wars character.
yeah, nice. So yes, getting more live action Maul I think would be super duper awesome. So this brings up the thing I started talking about, where I was really hopeful that this would be the first Star Wars movie without an actual lightsaber, because we were kind of promised no Jedi in Rogue One, and then Darth shows up, and Darth Vader shows up in
Yeah.
in this one. just in case you forgot who this dude is, he definitely brings up his lightsaber, his dual-sided lightsaber, and ignites that sucker through the hologram. So,
Yep.
yeah. So we still have not had a Star Wars film without a lightsaber.
And this is the same lightsaber design that Maul has in Rebels,
Yes.
which is later in the timeline.
Yeah, just actually a decent amount later.
Yeah,
Like
it's
what? Like 8 years later?
9 years later.
Yeah. So
So there's a lot of
the-
shit that happens between now and then as
Yes.
far as Maul goes.
and even between, Phantom and Clone Wars and leading up to this,
Yep.
especially again to the casual Star Wars fan that that might remember Maul but has no idea what the hell he's doing here after seeing him get cut in half, right? Like,
Right.
So it is an interesting throw in, especially considering the writers Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote for Star Wars as long ago as Empire.
Right.
Helped with Return of the Jedi
And
wrote
The
for
Force Awakens.
and then now this is apparently his last foray into the Star Wars universe for writing.
Okay.
As
I had
I've
heard
heard.
retirement, but I didn't know if that was retirement from Star Wars or retirement from writing film in general.
I believe it's just from Star Wars.
Okay.
As far as my understanding is, I could be very wrong. Really quickly, he was at the screening that I saw.
Yeah, both
he-
he and his son were they not?
Yep, both. Yep. So both Lawrence Kasdan and Jonathan Kasdan showed up and on stage to introduce themselves, and that was exciting. That was really fun.
Now, did they say anything about the movie in general, or did they just come out and say, "Hey, this is who we are. Thanks for coming to see our movie. We wrote this thing. Hope you enjoy it. See you later. Love you. Goodbye."
Essentially that. Yes, essentially
Gotcha.
that. Yeah, they didn't. It wasn't a Q&A. It was definitely just they made an appearance and
So they didn't say
closed
like,
us off.
"We'd like to bring somebody out on stage. Ray Park's here."
Ray Park. Yep, Ray Park, and also
Ray Park
this
was like, "Yeah, definitely alive. See you later.
Yeah.
You guys already
Yeah.
watched this, right? Oops, fuck that one up.
Whoops.
See you later."
Yeah, and then Tom Holland shows up like, "Hey, Spider-Man's in this. Wait, what? Like, what the
What?
fuck are you talking about?" So yeah, no, they definitely made an appearance, and like Lawrence Kasdan he still looked very excited and surprised. I don't know how old he is actually.
He also
but
looked a lot younger than I expected him to, because I kind
Right?
of imagined that he was like Irving Kirchner's age, like back then.
yeah,
And that would put him at like 140 now.
I'm looking up Lawrence Kasdan. He's 69, so not terribly old actually.
Not at all.
No, yeah. So
He is younger than Indiana Jones.
yeah, that surprises me as well. So, yeah, 69. Not too bad. Yeah, because he seemed not pissed to be there. Let's put it that way. Like sometimes when these appearances are happening, it's definitely like a Disney. You two should go show up at.
Right. Hey,
The El
remember
Capitan
that,
Theater.
remember that paper you signed and the check
Yeah.
we signed for you? Like
Exactly.
You're going to do it. So,
You're gonna show up, but I mean, it was in Hollywood. I'm sure their homes were like 10 minutes away. So,
right.
But
All
yeah,
that
so-
being said,
yes. All that being said, so
we have cut to, well, I guess we haven't cut to credits. The last thing that happens is Han and Chewie are discussing what they're going to do next, and Chewie talks about this thing Beckett had offered to him, which was that there's some gangster putting together a team on Tatooine, and
yep.
they're going to go check that out, which means either they go check it out later or they
Are going immediately.
immediately, and they've been hanging out on fucking Tatooine for 10 years.
Essentially is what I got. Or like they're making runs. Like Tatooine's not their home, I don't think, but
Right.
they're constantly doing business deals there, right? It's like the Australian businessman that has to keep going to Singapore,
Okay, I don't
and
know.
Hong
any of them.
Kong. Yeah. So just running business deals wherever you have to because, or like Shanghai's the up and coming place to go. So
Fair enough.
sorry, family, I'm going to Shanghai,
Fair
hanging
enough.
out there. So that's kind of what I would get from that. But then, cue credits directed by Ron Howard. Not.
Directed by Ron Howard. He got the Solo
Yep.
directing credit on Solo.
He got the full Solo credit. And the last thing before I get into the full wrap up is I do really hope that Ron Howard is offered a full shot at a Star Wars film where he does have full control from
like
beginning
start
to
to
end.
finish. Yeah.
Yeah, he's. What's interesting is you have to remember he's had blockbusters, but he's not a blockbuster director, right?
Right.
He's directed 3 Dan Brown adaptations.
I was actually going to bring those up later.
Yep. So he's directed those. Apollo 13, of course, was a cultural phenomenon. Like Houston, We Have a Problem is still something that's kind of in the social consciousness. Mm-hmm. Really, when it comes to like crowd pleasing, everybody wants to watch these sort of movies. Like The Grinch might be it. Really, and
Did
then
he do
Willow.
The Grinch?
Yep, the Jim Carrey one. Yep, he directed the Jim Carrey Grinch back in 2000.
That was a fun movie.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to these like summer event film blockbuster things, this is really his first go at it. I mean, he's won directing Oscars for like I believe A Beautiful Mind, and I don't know what else I don't know if he's won other ones, but like he's definitely been like nominated for like Apollo 13. Yeah, his other films would be like A Beautiful Mind, which is very serious and very dramatic and very dour. Like Cinderella Man. He's not always a director for the masses per se, right?
You're saying he's not just the guy from Arrested Development?
No, he does a little bit more than narrating stuff there. But or showing up in American Graffiti. But yeah, so again, I would like for him to get an honest shot at shaping his own Star Wars film.
Yeah, I think he's earned that.
Yeah, and just to date this episode, before we get to your and my reaction, I want to react to the overall fan reaction that I've been seeing from Solo, which after The Last Jedi, apparently The Last Jedi was very divisive. I liked it. I've heard arguments as to why people do not like it. Some of it I can see, I can understand. I don't agree with it, but I accept that argument.
Okay.
There's other arguments that I just don't understand whatsoever, and I understand that it's maybe not the same people, but a lot of criticisms I heard from Force Awakens was that it's just like A New Hope.
Right.
And then The Last Jedi does everything to subvert expectations, and then suddenly everybody's like, "Oh, that movie's way too different."
Right.
It's you got to pick. It's one or the other, right? And now Solo, despite making $85 million in 3 days, in the 4-day totals, including Memorial Day, it made 103.
Okay.
According to estimates that I saw. That's not a little bit amount of money. That's still a lot of fucking money.
Right.
And yet suddenly I'm seeing like articles like, "Oh, Star Wars bombed at the box office."
Yeah, it's weird because
Like $83 million is not bombing at the damn box office. Like
I look at movie news often online.
Yes.
And one of the websites that I go to, I'll be scrolling through, and it had probably in 8 articles, it had like 6 that were about Solo. And it would be like Solo review spoiler free, Solo review with spoilers, why it's great, Solo review with spoilers, why it's terrible. And then it was like Solo breaking box office records. And then the next fucking article was, like you said, like Solo tanked at the box office, Disney should be afraid for the future of Star Wars. And I'm like, like what the fuck? Like they're written by your staff writers, and they were published on your website like 2 hours and 10 minutes apart. Like what happened?
Mm-hmm.
How did it go from like breaking box office records, amazing fucking movie, to this is shit and Disney should be worried?
Yeah, exactly. And like people are calling for like the resignation of Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah.
And the way she's running Lucasfilm. I'm like, she's running it fine. I mean,
I disagree
again
with those statements.
Yeah, like I'm so confused by how suddenly $88 million or whatever 83, 85
it's because it's not at $300 million,
which it never was going to be. You know, it was never going to do Infinity War numbers. You know, Infinity War had 10 years of build up to that film, right?
Uh-huh. And I think some people are comparing numbers to Rogue One, and I don't even remember what Rogue One's numbers were. But Rogue One also came out the week before Christmas.
Yeah. So there's different factors. I will agree that I think it's a busy time right now with both Infinity War and Deadpool out.
For sure.
Right? All in the same month. That I understand.
Give it some room to breathe is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but the idea too, like the other thing that I've seen that's like really frustrating is the idea that there's Star Wars fatigue, right? I'm like, bitch, there's 3 Marvel movies out a year, and for a while they were all exactly the fucking same movie.
I have heard many people talk about Star Wars fatigue or superhero fatigue or fucking whatever fatigue, right?
Yeah.
Like when there's fucking Armageddon and Deep Impact that both came out like 3 months from each other. Yeah. It's like, ooh, there's like catastrophe movie fatigue. It's because, whomever is saying this has seen a couple of movies that are similar and they don't want to see another one and whatever. Yeah. That doesn't mean that the cultural zeitgeist has fatigue for Star Wars right now. Like,
exactly.
I think that we just had a fucking 2 hour and 15-minute movie about Han Solo playing in the mud and making the Kessel Run.
Mm-hmm.
It proves that we haven't hit fatigue yet.
Yeah. Like, this is very different than the other 3 Disney films that have come out regarding Star Wars, or the Disney-owned bits. Just to put this in some perspective too, I was double checking because somebody brought this figure up I saw on Twitter, and Doctor Strange in 2016, its weekend total gross for 3 days was $85 million.
Right.
And nobody called for the resignation of Kevin Feige. Right. Like nobody.
And what are we at right now for Solo?
Something like in the 130s or something like that.
Right. Respectable.
It made something. It was like it was like 103 as of end of day yesterday. So whatever. Yeah.
Do you have budget numbers handy? Do you know?
The budget is where people get concerned. So as of estimate, it's because budgets aren't ever really revealed, but it's estimated to have cost about $250.
Now, does that include marketing budget, or is that just production budget?
That does not include marketing. That does not include marketing, but essentially that's $250 for essentially what is 2 shot movies. Remember?
Right.
So, yes, against budget, that's not good for Disney's back end numbers, but in terms of like number of people showing up to see a movie on a holiday weekend where, at least with the December releases, they're always kind of giving it a little bit of breathing room between Christmas and the actual release date of said whatever film comes out, right?
Yeah.
You also have to remember, like right now, Memorial Weekend, even for me, I was with family. We didn't go see a movie.
Right.
Memorial Weekend is not really
to the movie.
My family. Yeah. It's sunny outside. Also, like some people are...
Pools are open.
Yeah, pools are open.
The sun, you go to the lake.
Exactly.
It's like the first day you pack your boat up, you head to the lake, you fucking drop it in the water, you grill some hot dogs, you drink some beer.
Exactly. Enjoy yourself. Because the sun, after the long winter, has finally shown its fucking face.
Right.
Right. So, I mean... in terms of justifying why it didn't do like $150 million, right? Not every movie's gonna do that. So that's kind of my annoyance with all of this, and people calling for the resignation of Kathleen Kennedy and all of this crazy business, and like, oh, like at least now they have time to course correct for episode 9. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, and this is why I wanted to have the long conversation and contextualize what Ron Howard did, right?
For sure.
The movie's not perfect. The movie definitely is not perfect.
So
but for people to call $85 million a colossal failure is just dumb. It's just like suddenly everybody's a box office expert, you know?
I am a hypercritical movie nerd.
Yeah.
And I'll go ahead and tell you my thumbs up, thumbs down on this is a thumbs down.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I left the movie saying I liked this. This was fun. Mm-hmm. And the more that I thought about it, the more there was stuff that bugged me or whatever. So overall, and I had a lot of fun over the past hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, whatever it's been, talking about this, and a lot of the things that we brought up made me smile and made me reminded me why I liked those parts of the movie. I think overall for right now it gets a thumbs down for me. I think when I get this on Blu-ray and I sit down and I watch the behind the scenes stuff and I watch it with director's commentary and I rewatch it 4 or 5 more times, my thumb's gonna rotate more to the up direction. And there's no doubt in my mind that I will review this movie a dozen times within the next year.
Yeah.
So it's not on watchability. It's not on I don't even know. It's not on a lot of things. It's just my first impression overall. Part of it was some of the extra shit that didn't need to be there. I'm totally fine with fan service, and I love it. Yeah. I am totally okay, and I love the those extra tidbits of like the deep dive into, you know, fucking make a movie out of a Wikipedia page. I'm cool with that. That's the nuts and bolts of the stuff that I love about Star Wars. Something with it didn't stick with me. We talked about the muddiness of the visuals in the whole Kessel thing and kind of the Kessel thing in general. It dropped it down a little bit. I want to say I checked my expectation at the door, which I definitely tried to do. But going in, I feel like a lot of the time I was left wanting for something else, not necessarily something more.
Okay. See, because I think you and I are differing in how we approach our view of the movie. Because
For sure.
To me, I am definitely just judging the movie on its own, right?
Right.
Like, not with universe, out of universe editions, whatever. Just, is this a good movie?
You give more of a
like an analytical
critique.
Yeah.
So you give an objective review, and I give a subjective review. Is that?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Do I have those?
Yeah,
backwards?
That sounds right. Because you're definitely pulling, you know, not good or bad. Just you're definitely pulling in your feelings, and especially you said it. You know, like it left you wanting something different. I am gonna look at what Ron Howard and Lucasfilm plopped in front of me.
Right.
And is that good or bad, right? To me, on the whole, it's a thumbs up, you know.
Okay.
Again, not a perfect film. If anything, the first third was very slow to me. Okay. Then kind of once we get to the train heist, that's when things definitely start picking up for me.
Right.
The first quarter definitely had me concerned. But as the film kind of found its footing, I think it was just too much set up to try and explain who Solo was before we get to him with crew and all that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the characterization there in telling the story. But overall, I think as a movie, it's finished, it's polished looking. Yes, there are a few shots here and there that could be cleared up a little bit more, but when it comes to like that train heist, you know, I think that was really well done stuff. And reportedly, Tandy Newton says that she did not work with Ron Howard as much as the other actors. So I just out of personal curiosity, I am guessing that's a lot of Miller and Lord stuff, which I find very interesting if Ron Howard was able to work that in and as shot. But I believe the cinematographer stayed on, so that I think that's where that consistency remains. But on the whole, I like you said, the movie to me is just fun. It's not great. It's not life-changing. It's just a fun flick. You know, shovel some popcorn in your mouth. There are a few jokes here and there that definitely work. There's a few other moments that I think hold some weight, you know.
Yeah, I agree. The movie is fun.
Yeah.
Was I entertained? Yes.
Yeah.
I did feel often when Han Solo was in a shot, like it was either prepping for some quip, some line, some something, or it was getting Han from point A to point B where he could stand in this pose or do this thing or shoot his blaster this way or something. Like it was a series of setups for poster moments or
and again, this is
something.
where I think this is where, you know, given some actual pre-production time, you know.
Yeah.
This is exactly what pre-production is for, right? Is to plan blocking, to plan motivations, you know. It's to nail down and hash out between actors and directors, you know, what is the story? What is the story that we are all collectively trying to tell?
Right. We're not just here to show that Han fucking fired his blaster like this always or whatever.
Well, some people have this like weird idea where like acting is like just memorize your lines and stand there and say them while the camera is rolling.
Like George Lucas?
Yes, faster, more intense. Yeah, faster, more intense.
Right.
So the idea that Ron Howard was able to step in with actors that he did not get to form a relationship with and yet was able to take control of situation and
and not only that, but be like, hey, the old bosses are out and I'm the new boss and we got to get this shit done. We're on a schedule and I'm going to push you guys and we're going to do it. And we're going
So again, that's very commendable. Yeah, that's very commendable. And in the end, yes, there are those problems that you mentioned. There are a few poses of Lando when he's shooting that's a little awkward on how he's aiming a weapon, a blaster. But again, just on the whole, I think as an entertaining summer film, you know, is this worth your $15? I say yes. You know, is this a worthy addition to the Star Wars universe? I don't think it was necessary. But now that it has been laid out, you know, I don't hate it, right? Like, so this one definitely. This one doesn't get me revved up the way like Rogue One did, right? Like Rogue One, I think, revved me up and showed me everything that these side stories could do in terms of like it filled up plot holes and it introduced me to characters that I loved and opened up the world just a little bit, not a lot, but just enough, right?
Yeah, I definitely left Rogue One like with a smile, said that was fucking awesome. Like I want to see it again right now.
Yep.
I left Solo going, it was a movie. It was good.
Yes, yeah.
I need to think about this for a while. I'll definitely revisit it in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, like I definitely want to see it again, but I agree it's not it just doesn't pull me in emotionally the way Rogue One got me excited. So
Yeah.
but again, I think part of the problem is it's exploring the backstory of a character that we already came to understand, right? Like there wasn't as much of a mystery the way like Darth Vader's backstory was kind of left open, right?
Yeah, or Kylo Ren's, or Snoke's, or Rey's, or a lot of characters that we've met along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So
I feel like in the past we've had enough that the backstory of Han Solo wasn't even the story that I was really looking to have fleshed out.
Yes, yeah. So
just like Boba Fett, I don't think is a backstory that we need, but it sounds like we got a Boba Fett movie coming, and that
James Mangold, as you mentioned
Mangold,
earlier.
right.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier. Yeah, so the idea that we're fleshing out backstories of characters, I think is limiting to what I would hope from these anthology films.
Mm-hmm.
I think I joked about it before in other episodes where, to me, I just want like a rom-com with fresh characters that we've never met set in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Because that's a little story that's happening on this planet and whatever, like.
Right, and they go to Dexter Jettster's diner and
exactly. Yeah,
have
like
some Java
American
juice.
Yeah, just give me American Graffiti set in the Star Wars galaxy, starring
Right, like
Harrison
Space
Ford
American,
and Ron Howard.
Space Feedy.
Yeah, Space Graffiti. Yeah, right. So, get me Coruscant Graffiti, and I am so there, right?
Yeah. As far as Solo goes, like my last comment, and then I will shut my mouth and we can get out of here. But
yeah.
do you remember a little film called Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade?
Yes.
So do you remember how the first 10 minutes of this were young Indiana Jones,
Yep.
and throughout the
Phoenix.
course of one day he got his whip, his hat, his
And
scar.
Yep. Yes.
It's weird that both of these characters were Han Solo, or were
Harrison
Harrison
Ford.
Ford rather, but I feel like we could have taken this entire movie and condensed most of it down to a little 10-minute prologue. Done the same thing, because what did we do? We got his blaster, we got his Wookiee, we got his ship, so, and then we could have okay, we're over that, now let's tell a story of Han Solo.
Again, that's where that would be my only major complaint, is the shoehorning in of all the explicit things that we know Han has done.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need to see that all happen at once, right? So I agree with you there that it definitely falls into the prequel trap of, hey, here's all the shit.
Yeah,
that
I'm
you're
saying
gonna care about.
if that's the story we have to tell, get it over with and fucking move on.
Yes.
If there's a sequel to this, which I actually saw somebody on Twitter, I think, that said I don't know, I think they were talking about Solo titles, and if this was a trilogy, it was Solo, Duo, and Trio, which would be great. But whatever comes after this, as long as they're not just stuck on Tatooine for fucking 10 years, is probably going to be a really good fucking movie, because we got all this other shit out of the way.
Yes.
Let's just tell the fucking story. Let's just hang out with Chewie. Bring back Phil and Chris. Let's hang out with Chewie. Let's hang out with Han. Let's let them do their 21 Tatooine Street.
Yeah, I don't know about that still, but I agree in terms of getting the prequel bug out of everybody's system regarding Solo, because to me the worst offender would be the Hobbit films, right?
Didn't make it
especially
through. Couldn't do it.
yeah, especially that first one where it's like it was more of a Lord of the Rings prequel than an actual Hobbit story. To me,
Right.
here at least, like this story does progress in a way that feels natural rather than like Gandalf went off and now he's talking to Galadriel, even though that has nothing to do with anything else that's happening in the movie
Yeah.
that we are currently watching.
I'll give you that one.
So, yeah, it definitely falls into some of these prequel traps. I agree with you there. Did it destroy everything to me? No, but yeah, we got to stop with these prequels that explain every little detail that we already were comfortable knowing the little bits we knew about, right? Like,
Yeah, and I'm totally conflicted because I love that stuff.
yeah. See, again, I all the pieces are here for a truly great film. Like the direction, I think was on point. The music by John Powell, by the way, we haven't mentioned. I think this is some of the stronger, but between this and Giacchino stuff from Rogue One,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think both of them did really strong. But to me, I love John Powell from the How to Train Your Dragon films.
Okay.
I think Powell does very well. What John Williams does is that he knows how to create soaring anthems.
That and there's an integration. Like the first time that
Yeah.
I saw Rogue One, there was points where the way that the score came in and interacted with the film, I was like, oh, look, there's a fucking orchestral score to this movie, and it's right there in my face.
Yep. Yes.
Even though
Yeah.
to my ears, but
Yeah. So I agree. John Powell definitely. I love Giacchino. I really do. He's done some great work, especially with Pixar. Oddly enough, I think Powell here, his sensibilities of writing that soaring orchestral music definitely feels more Star Wars to me. You know.
mm-hmm.
And you know, regarding recent episodes of Clone Wars and music, you know, it's sometimes people try things and it doesn't work. I think John Powell and Giacchino definitely have both put their thumbprint on it without damaging the Star Wars brand. But John Powell's stuff, I think, is really fantastic here. Actually, was listening to it on my flight to and from San Jose for the holiday weekend, and as standalone pieces, I think, you know, they definitely work outside of the film as well as they do in the film, and the acting from everybody, I think, was all there. It's just, you know,
there was either a couple pieces missing or out of place or something.
Yeah,
And
like the sum of all the parts, like all the parts are there. The sum of it, just it's real. It's again, it's good. It just didn't go above and beyond, and yeah. So I still liked it though. I still had a good time. So this went a lot longer than I think you and I planned on, which I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Figured we'd be in this range.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. So, but the fact that we've gone through a 2.25 hour long movie in about the same amount of time we've gone through a Clone Wars episode, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, this could have been like 10 fucking hours long.
Yeah, we definitely we did our jumping around, but I think is there any final things you want to say after 2 hours here?
That's I threw my notes out there and I said I wasn't going to say anything else, so we'll
Okay.
keep it that. I mean, you know, it's all there over the past couple hours, so I did enjoy watching the movie, even though
Yeah.
I gave it a thumbs down. So
All right.
I don't know how to figure that one out, but Lorenzo, thanks for sitting down, talking solo with me. I think we can probably skip our normal after episode
normal
plugs.
wrap up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
We're not the
essentially,
nerds. These aren't the nerds you're looking for. All that jazz. So
yeah, you know where to find us. Also, there will be another episode coming out either the same day as this one of our regularly scheduled programming. But yeah, basically, Kevin and I could not pass up the opportunity to review a actual Star Wars film that is being released while we have now started this podcast.
yeah, the next one will be episode 9.
Episode 9. You know, maybe at some point we'll go back and do an actual thought process on something else. I don't know. And
Yeah.
by the time episode 9 comes out, we'll have like Resistance and all. We're trying to expand things out. We've discussed this a few times on.
Yeah, we're trying to
Various episodes,
talk
though.
more and more and more.
Yeah, basically, we're trying to just monopolize your ear holes. So,
Which, breaking news, I think tomorrow they're going to announce that episodes 9, the title of episode 9 is Star Wars Episode 9, Darth Maul Still Is Not Dead.
you got new legs, Mr. Maul.
Lieutenant Maul.
Lieutenant Maul. Lieutenant Maul. You got new legs.
Oh, man. Alrighty. We'll see you
All right,
guys
man.
today, tomorrow, yesterday, or next week, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever we got.
These aren't the
All
nerds
right.
you're looking for.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.